in bad shape. Oh, yeah.
First thing I remember seeing is a large amount of blood.
Scottsdale Police Department, anybody inside? Announce yourself now!
We have someone that is ahead of us that is committing these homicides.
Going up, face down here. Bleeding.
And we haven't been able to catch up to them yet.
Look at bullet holes in the walls. Either he got nervous and missed, or he was killed.
Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine something happening at my office.
Are you the only one in there?
Yeah. Do you mind just real quick, just turn around for us so we can see your whole waistline?
We're dealing with a suspect with a very generic description. You're talking about a needle and a stack of needles.
Anybody inside, say so now.
Everyone was just on edge because there was no way to guess how this was going to play out.
Yep. Right then and there, it was like, okay, here we go.
We have no idea what is going to happen.
Yeah, not behind the bush, we walk. Stay over behind the wall.
What is the link? What is the relationship between all these people?
He just had unreconcilable rage.
You've started your plan. Where are we going with this? How do you see us ending?
I need a medical. There's a lady, she just came running up to me and she's bleeding. There was blood dripping from her face. She just laid down on the ground.
Is anybody able to make contact with her?
She's non-responsive. I cannot get her to speak.
Is she breathing?
I cannot tell if she's breathing. Oh my God, I don't even know if she's alive anymore. She's covered in blood and I think she's dying, ma'am.
Scottsdale police officers raced to the scene, an office complex in the heart of the city.
The information coming to the call for patrol officers that were responding was that the female was covered in blood, bleeding really bad from her kind of head face area. Going to something like that, you don't know exactly what you're coming into. Did she fall? Was she hit? But somebody bleeding from the head, that's never going to be anything good. So you kind of just got to expect anything and everything.
She okay? She went down on the road or did she fall?
The first thing I remember seeing is a large amount of blood on the sidewalk. I see a female that's lying face down. Immediately I can kind of tell something's a little bit different about this call. So it's policy and good practice to activate your body cam. The big reason for that is preservation of the scene. You're almost creating a snapshot of what you're seeing at the time. She's basically laying in a deep pool of blood and she's not moving.
I don't know if she's bleeding from the mouth.
I can see that the pool's getting bigger and she had some type of wound, kind of like in her jaw area. That's when I started to figure out that I think I've got a gunshot victim here.
She's in bad shape. Oh, yeah.
Seeing somebody in that condition never gets easy. I just felt like I had a feeling of helplessness. I think naturally we're problem solvers, and not being able to solve a problem creates just this frustration.
Officers at the scene soon learned the name of the woman, Valeria Sharp.
Valeria was my paralegal and assistant. She had just moved from Portland. And so I only knew her for a year. So I was just getting to know her, her family. She loved talking about her kids and her husband. She was smart, she was careful. She had the world's best temperament. She was calm, no matter what. In divorce law, there's a lot of emotion, so she was the perfect person to deal with all the things that she dealt with.
Back at the scene, Officer Haas continues his investigation while medics tend to Valeria.
Where'd she come from, over here? I don't know. Yeah, kind of hang away too.
At this point, I'm still by myself, and I'm taking a 50-yard walk from a gunshot victim to an open door to an office building.
2L35 is responding units. I got an open door over here. I don't know if it's a condo or an office. And based on her injury, we might want to check over here.
As I approach the door, a million scenarios going through your head. Do we have more victims inside? Is our suspect inside? That's obviously our big concern as well. I get to that open door.
There's blood in here. Yeah. Starting here and on the door handle.
On the inside door handle, there is blood from what appeared to be like a handprint.
There's blood back there too, from what I can see on the ground.
I could see blood on the floor leading into the office. Obviously something bad happened in here.
Let's see what over here first.
Yeah.
Get the heat unit ever out. Yeah, let's just hold that.
I don't know if we got much of a rush here.
We learned that it was a law office, middle of the day. In your mind, you're running through scenarios, thinking of possible connections, why this law office?
Should I go around to the back? Is there a back door here?
I'm assuming there's a front, and I think this is the back of a back door. But yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna head around the other side then, if you guys are good here for a second. Okay. How you doing, sir? Mind just stepping out?
Officers move to the front of the office and encounter a man exiting the building.
Is anybody else inside that building?
I don't think so. I just stopped by to look at some painting. I don't think anybody in there. I yelled hello.
236. I'm gonna be out with one subject in the building. So, how long were you inside for?
10 seconds. I just walked in and said, hello, it's a painter. I got no response.
236. He's saying he's a painter. He just walked in there a minute ago. Is it the door open when you arrived? Wide open? Okay. Just step back this way, sir. Keep your hands where I can see them.
The officer that went around ends up detaining the man, checking him for weapons, and doing a public safety interview of him to find out why he's there, what he's doing there.
Just have a seat right here, sir.
Ultimately, he was a hired painter by the law firm, what I would call the definition of the wrong place, wrong time.
The department's high enforcement arrest team, also known as HEAT, arrives and enters the law office.
Never someone inside, guys. You guys stay for the moment? Yep. Let's go.
There's an open door to your right.
It's clear over here.
Have you fall. Take this. I'm going to take you back. All right. This room, and then the hallway goes that way. A number of rooms off of that. So we'll take this part out. The next thing I need to do is Chance and I are going to take that room.
Okay.
You guys dump the reception area. Okay. Understood? Nice and slow.
Responding to a call like this, your anxiety is high. It's through the roof.
Take this next one last.
You ready? I'm about to dump in there.
Also, we still don't know if there's a suspect in there.
She's going to dive in. I can see the dead wall. She's going to come dead wall, and then she's going to go hard right back in with her and cover the rest of this.
Okay.
Chance.
Go
ahead.
Are there more victims? I mean, what's going on? Where's the end?
Get it behind desk for me.
There's a woman face down. We got someone else face down here. Bleeding. Yep.
Got a shell right here, too.
Okay.
You're going to cover cross cover here and watch the blood here.
Our heat unit, they find a second victim in a basically similar scene to what I encountered outside. She's laying in a pool of blood.
Ma'am, can you hear us at all? Ma'am? Can you see where her wound is? Upper back? We need to update the search. Currently clearing this office building. There's another person down inside the office building, currently unresponsive. We're still clearing to get up to them. Notify fire, have them stand by to come in.
The second woman is soon identified as Laura Anderson, a paralegal at the office.
Laura had been in our office for the better part of over 10 years. We all knew Laura really well. Any lawyer will understand this. We've all had a paralegal or an assistant that was smarter than we were, did more the work than we did, and should have been the lawyer. That was Laura. Laura was whip smart, so capable, and good at anything she wanted to be good at.
Back inside the law office, members of the Scottsdale Fire Department tend to Laura.
15 seconds. No pulse. All right, continuing compressions. I'm getting some blood out of this chest wound. I'm sorry, sir. Do you say we're looking like a no-go in the ambulance?
Despite our fire department's life-saving efforts, the victim was pronounced deceased there on scene.
Let's call real quick.
We're calling it, sir? And King's Rate update. They're actually pronouncing 901 now.
Later, we learned that the other victim died at the hospital.
So as of right now, it looks like double homicide. The body that's inside, there was no gun around her. She looked like she was shot while walking down the hallway. As of right now, we got no gun. Several shell casings, but I'm not seeing a gun yet.
So now we have 2 confirmed homicide victims from gunshot wounds.
Coming out.
And we have a killer on the loose.
"30 minutes after arriving on scene, detectives in Scottsdale, Arizona are investigating the double homicide of Valeria Sharp and Laura Anderson.
It was unfortunate, sad, tragic, horrific. Nobody should have to be murdered. And I remember this overwhelming sense of guilt. I still have it. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine something happening at my office.
But the hunt for the shooter is slow to produce suspects.
As the investigation started, we didn't know what the reason for their deaths was. Was it a robbery? Was it some personal grudge to do with the law firm, to do with them personally? We really came in with a blank slate that afternoon, knowing that what we have here are 2 deceased individuals and a lot of questions to answer.
Hey, anyone talk to you yet? A little bit, but...
No, yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Actually, the woman there sitting saw more than I. I was sitting on the back of my lid here.
Okay.
At the onset of this investigation, we had no identified leads, we had no suspects, so we have to cast a very wide net, and talking to witnesses becomes crucial at that point to establish a little time frame.
I turned, and all of a sudden I see the limo driver lady get out of the car. I see her door open. She goes, "Oh my God," and then I looked, and I see the lady on the ground, the victim on the ground, face down, blood all over, and I thought that she landed on her nose and busted her nose kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's all I saw, but as I was witnessing it, she was trembling, like she was having...
Did you actually see her fall down?
No, sir.
It's incredibly crucial that we speak to as many people as possible so we can start to develop where our investigation is going to take us.
So you were out for a stroll then?
Yeah.
What did you see when you went out for a stroll?
Basically, I was just walking on that side of the street, and I saw her come running out from this street, and I mean, I could tell that she was not, like, there was something wrong with her. She wasn't, like, running at full speed. She was kind of, like, struggling.
But she was running in the street?
Yeah, she was running in the street, and then she hit the side of that bus, and then sort of went around, and I don't know if she knocked on the door, but then she fell to the ground.
And you were on the other... You were on the sidewalk.
I was sort of like right where that palm tree thing is.
We were hoping that a witness would come forward that would have seen something. In this case, that didn't happen.
Did you hear anything during the day?
No, I left at 8:30, or I got here at 8:30, but at 12 o'clock I went to do the deposit, and I came back, and you just aren't aware of your surroundings, but didn't notice
You weren't
anything.
gone very long at noon,
I was
no?
gone just for maybe half an hour.
Yeah, it was after that then.
Okay, yeah,
So
I was back by
in the afternoon, you didn't hear anything?
The frustration with this situation was the fact that we didn't have an obvious motive. When we don't have a motive in front of us, we really don't know who this person is, and we don't know what their motivation is.
But then, detectives on the scene receive an unexpected visit.
So as this is going on, we get a couple detectives from Phoenix that walk up, and they immediately start inquiring as to what we have in our investigation. Phoenix police had responded to a calls for service where a subject had been shot the day before.
One day earlier, renowned forensic psychiatrist Dr. Stephen Pitt had been gunned down in broad daylight, 12 miles away in Phoenix.
Mr. Pitt was pronounced deceased from the gunshot wounds. And what we come to learn is that the type of ammunition that was used at both crime scenes was the same make of ammunition. The killer in the Stephen Pitt case was more likely the same suspect in the Valeria Sharp and Laura Anderson murders. So right then and there it was like, okay, here we go.
Scottsdale investigators also learn Phoenix police have a description of the shooter.
Witnesses described a white male with a hat that approached Mr. Pitt, shot him. So initially, Phoenix police was tracking down a lot of potential leads based on the sketch that they were provided by the witness. I will admit there was a little bit of stress. We're dealing with a suspect with a very generic description of a white male, which could be about anyone. I mean, you're talking about a needle and a stack of needles.
A short time later, Elizabeth Feldman arrives at her office, the scene of the two latest murders.
The first text message I got was from my law partner about Steve Pitt, because we both had used him and knew him. And then all of a sudden, she also texted me that something was going on in the office.
Detectives question Elizabeth about her firm's connection to Stephen Pitt.
So the last time you used Mr. Pitt was 10 years ago?
I have to look.
Was there anything more recent?
No.
Or anything that's still going on in litigation? Nothing?
Not for me.
Where we started again in trying to combine these two scenes, we didn't have any real obvious initial people that we were looking at between the Stephen Pitt murder and these murders. This wasn't something where there was one particular person that stood out. So to look at that and to say what overlap is now going to exist with this family law office was a very daunting task.
Oh my God.
Scottsdale 911, do you need police, fire, or medical?
Medic. I believe my husband shot himself.
You believe he shot himself?
Yes.
Well, I've got some help on the way. Can you see him?
Yes, he's in his office. He's hunched over on the sofa, and there's a bullet casing. Oh, God.
When I heard the 911 call and officers being dispatched, I knew in my gut that these were all related.
Ten hours into the Valeria Sharp and Laura Anderson murder investigations, and one day after Stephen Pitt was found shot to death, detectives in Scottsdale, Arizona have just received word of another shooting.
The reporting party called. She had found her fiance deceased in his office, and initially she didn't know, was this a suicide, what this was, but I knew in my gut that these were all related. We have someone that is ahead of us that is committing these homicides, and we haven't been able to catch up to them yet.
Officers arrive at the scene and discover the victim is Marshall Levine, a psychologist.
Back left room.
Southside Police Department, anybody inside? Announce yourself now!
He is injured, but there's no stimulants, okay? You still need to be safe about this.
Copy.
Another case there.
Can you go back outside with her?
Yeah. Where's the gun? Yeah, no, I see the shells. I don't see the gun.
Bullet holes in the walls as well, guys.
Then you have the 2 holes here. And it looks like there's a hole back here.
Got 2 on the top of his shirt collar. Looks like exits.
Oh yeah, right there.
You can see those already?
Looks like exits 2.
Another case there.
So either he got nervous and missed, or he was killed.
Hey, Eric, on the other prior homicide, what kind of casing was it?
It might be related.
At this point, our hairs are standing up on our neck. We're really starting to be concerned as to, okay, who's doing this? What is the link? We have a law firm, the well-known forensic psychiatrist, a psychologist now murdered. You're just adding in more of those needles into that haystack and trying to figure out what is the relationship between all these people.
What's the last name?
Oh, right there, probably. Oh, Levine? Marshall.
Yeah.
Marshall Levine was a counselor based here in Phoenix. He had recently relocated to the Valley a few years before and was living with his fiancée at the time. He had worked for a local private college here as a counselor to nursing students. They had grown to love him and how much of a wonderful counselor he was. He was so dedicated to his patients and his clients. They lost someone who was going to be a tremendous individual within that community.
Outside the office, officers speak with Marshall Levine's fiancée, the 911 caller.
I'm going to be spending some time with you, okay?
That's fine.
What time did you get here?
I just got here. I called. He was supposed to be home about 5 or 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I came over here. I saw his car. I was like, okay, good. Maybe he's with a patient. And the door was unlocked when I walked in. And then I saw him on the sofa, and I thought maybe, his blood sugar was low or something. And then as I got closer, that's when I saw the casing on the sofa.
Has he been having issues lately?
I mean, we've had just normal stuff, but no indication that anything like this would happen.
And he just does marriage counseling, or is there?
He does like life coaching and relationship counseling.
Does he ever do work with attorneys?
He hasn't since he's been here in New Jersey. He would have.
She ended up not being able to provide us with any details or any information that would help identify the suspect.
Although detectives aren't able to identify a suspect, they do learn that the shell casings recovered from this latest crime scene match those from the earlier murders.
So we had 3 crime scenes that were linked forensically. This changes everything.
We've got our victims identified. We found a commonality with how they're being killed, but we haven't linked up why they were killed. At this point, we really don't know who could be the next victim. So we're back to square one now.
While detectives search for answers at the crime scene, officers canvass the area.
So once we've established yet now a 3rd crime scene, the formula stays the same. We start over with a neighborhood canvass, looking for witnesses, looking for surveillance video. And to that end, the officers did a great job in discovering there was a mobile home in the business park immediately adjacent to the business where we were at.
Northwest of the crime scene was like a mobile camper that's got writing all over the windows. Can you just put both hands out for me, partner?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, just come on, step down for me real quick if you could.
They were able to contact a person, a male, actually living in the camper.
Are you the only one in there?
Yeah.
Do you mind just real quick, just turn around for us so we can see your whole waistline? Thanks, man. Just keep turning. Keep turning for us. All right. You just go ahead and put your hands down. See this curb over here? I'm gonna have you come over there and take a seat for us, okay?
Yeah, right here.
No weapons on you?
No. Keys, wallet, cell phone.
Just grab a seat for me if you could, man. What's your name?
This is not a residential area. This is a small business park, and it's also not something that I would have expected to find a small camper parked in, let alone a person living out of. So, is this person related? We didn't know what to think.
Okay. Do you live here? Or?
No, I have an office right over here on this corner. It's
Okay. You work in this?
Yeah, no one else is in there. Mind if we check real quick? Yeah, go ahead. It's a bit of a mess, but...
He is a white male. He generally matches the description of the sketch that we had, so he becomes a person of interest immediately to determine, is this somebody we need to investigate further?
So you work here?
Yeah, I'm self-employed. Yeah.
What's your practice? I'm not familiar. What is that?
It's like... crap, man.
What's your business called?
He didn't answer questions immediately or as quickly as we thought. He wasn't giving us that immediate answers we were looking for, and made it a little bit more pressing to identify this person as soon as possible.
In just 30 hours, detectives in Arizona are investigating the murders of Stephen Pitt, Valeria Sharp, Laura Anderson, and now a fourth victim, Marshall Levine, and are questioning a man near the scene of the latest murder.
I live down in Mesa.
Okay. How come you're sleeping here and not in Mesa?
So I don't have to drive an hour and a half.
Just wait a second.
Tonight. I got here about...
Understand you're not in trouble. We just need you to be really honest with us, because we're investigating something that happened nearby here.
Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to remember. Like 5 p.m., maybe?
Okay.
Through speaking with him a little bit more, we realized he was a business owner in the neighborhood, that he was working out of his office, and he was just using that as a place to stay, so he was ruled out relatively quickly. But we now have a spree murderer, and we have no suggestion as to where this person is going to go next. We don't know what the total is going to be. I was very confident that more homicides were going to occur unless we stopped this person.
Local media pick up on the story, also looking to connect all 4 victims and identify a suspect.
That weekend was constant coverage. From the time Stephen Pitt's murder, the news broke on Friday, we were all working around the clock. We were trying to figure out how this is affecting the legal community, what actions they're taking, how they're going to protect themselves. We were receiving tips about everything. The sketch is very generic. Everyone seemed to recognize someone in that sketch. So on Sunday, it felt like there had to have been something else. It felt like we were missing something. Every single gunshot wound that came in, we're thinking, is that it? Is this another one? Is this starting again? So everyone was just on edge because there was no way to guess how this was going to play out.
So at this point, we did have a task force established where we were investigating all these crime scenes. We were getting hundreds of tips and phone calls from people trying to identify someone or giving us names to look at as potential suspects. But nothing had given us anything that put all 3 crime scenes together.
Then, a tip comes in following the news reports that changes the course of the investigation.
I heard of a message that came from a female who had information to believe it was her ex-husband, and that he had dealings with all 3 of these crime scenes.
The ex-husband's name is Dwight Jones.
She did explain that they were divorced in 2009, that the attorney that she had used was Elizabeth Feldman.
Tell me your name again.
Elizabeth. Last name is Feldman.
This is Elizabeth. This is her building. Detective Nolan called her down. Would you mind walking her down there?
Not at all. Thank you very much.
All right.
My client was a true victim of domestic violence. They were married for 20 years. It went on for years and years and years.
But this is not the white male depicted in the sketch.
The first glaring issue was that he is a black male and he does not match the description that was given in that first crime scene. But her statements about Dwight Jones were just so compelling in the process of their divorce that Stephen Pitt was used as a psychologist to interview Dwight at the time to determine his mental stability. In addition, she had identified Marshall Levine's suite mate was actually a therapist that their son had seen. So this was the first tip that actually came in that listed all three locations as somebody, there's one person that we have that has in combination with all these three. There were additional things that she was able to tell me that was not out in the media, such as a vehicle description where she said he drove a gold Mercedes. In reviewing some of the surveillance video from the Phoenix scene of Stephen Pitt's murder, a gold Mercedes was seen leaving that parking lot. Dwight Jones at that point was a suspect.
Detective Heinzelman sets out to locate Dwight Jones.
I do have some surveillance teams that are out there looking for him. We were also analyzing some of Dwight Jones' cell phone records, and we determined that he had made a call to a residence in Fountain Hills on Saturday afternoon, and cell tower data had placed him in that proximity.
The home belongs to Brian Thomas and Mary Simmons, two individuals with whom detectives find no connection to Dwight's divorce case. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is contacted to do a welfare check.
As the sheriff's deputies get out there, they start looking around, and they're looking through the window of this fairly nice, fairly large home. We're listening to their radio traffic, and we hear them say, yes, we've got a confirmed person deceased. We have a second person deceased. So we tell them on the radio, hey, make entry. So they go inside.
Anybody inside, say so now.
Hallway left. I can't tell if this is the hallway right.
It's another living room left. I've got a garage door over here, I'm gonna check.
Oh, hang on, stop. You need to remember your right.
I can do that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Just got an open door to the left.
They locate Brian Thomas with multiple gunshot wounds. They identify Mary Simmons, multiple gunshot wounds, deceased. Brian Thomas and Mary Simmons were out of the MO of the victimology when it comes to the other victims involved in this case. They weren't tied to the forensic community. They were not tied to the law firm community. So why Dwight had them killed, really had a scratch in our heads. He was very unpredictable, and we could not guess his next move.
Investigators in Scottsdale, Arizona have identified their serial shooter as Dwight Jones and have discovered two more victims of his deadly rampage, Brian Thomas and Mary Simmons. Now, investigators are tracking his whereabouts.
Dwight's ex-wife did say that he was staying between two different hotels in Scottsdale, and we could probably still find him at this one in particular. So So now we have established at least where he's been living, and it's a month-to-month hotel. We need to do something. We need to do something fast to get him off the street to prevent further loss of life.
In the early morning hours, Scottsdale and Phoenix police race to the hotel.
Northbound except for PD. Phoenix has a lot of their SAU roll on 97.
It is. What's the hot zone? Okay.
That's where the traffic. Beyond 16.
Yep.
Block here. Just let Phoenix and us in. Okay.
Got it.
Arriving at the hotel, we want to make sure that everybody is safe, including the people who are staying at that hotel. And so we have to safely evacuate those citizens.
Hey, sorry to bother you. When you come out, just make a left and go down to that nearest fire exit, because that'll be the shortest route to get out of here. Stairs? Yeah, you're gonna have to go down the stairs. Is that okay? Yeah. All right, thanks.
We have no idea of what is going to happen, if he will walk out peacefully, if he will engage us in a shooting, possibly hurt one of our officers or an innocent citizen walking by the hotel room. We don't know.
Moments later, officers hear shooting coming from inside a room.
Yep.
Officers are on scene. It's chaotic. There's gunfire that rings out, about 4 shots at least, and it's unknown, were those gunshots fired at somebody? Were they fired out the window, out the door? We had no information. We were just kind of dealing with the information that we had at hand that was constantly changing by the seconds.
Yeah, not behind the bush, the wall. Maybe go behind the wall.
Behind that building. Behind the building? You need to go behind that building over there.
Okay. Come back this way, behind the building. Get behind the building.
Many thoughts were going through my mind at that moment. The biggest thought was that I hope that we can get Dwight Jones alive. And so the decision was made to deploy CS gas into the hotel room where Dwight Jones was staying. It's impossible to sit in a room without any protective gear and have the room covered in with CS gas and not move or breathe or cough. A negotiator was brought in because we have a violent person who just committed several murders, and we want to bring this to a resolution as peacefully as possible.
Mr. Jones, this is Officer Lazoya of the City of Phoenix Police Department. We'd like to be able to communicate with you.
While we're waiting to find out what is going on inside of the room, there's a lot of thoughts that are going through your head. You know, you don't know if he just fired out of his room for no reason, destruction of evidence. So there was nothing to do besides wait. And we had a lot of concerns that he would engage us in a shootout or possibly harm somebody else. We didn't know what was inside that hotel room at that moment.
Mr. Jones, is Officer Lazoya. We just heard some couple of shots earlier. We want to make sure that everything's okay. If you were concerned, maybe you're hurt, I want to be able to see if we can get you some medical treatment if necessary. If you can hear my voice, please yell out so that we can try to help you out.
But there's a sense of restlessness that we all had at that point. Many days and many lives lost and taken by Dwight Jones leading up to that point.
And we can try to work through this. And, you know, obviously we're here because, you know, you are who you are. You've started your plan, what you got going on. You know, this whole thing, it seems like you got your plan in motion. And we'd like to know what's going on. Where are we going from this? How do you see this ending? What's your approach from here? How are you planning on dealing with us?
So after everything that we have done up until that point, there was no response from Dwight Jones.
Police decide to breach the door, not knowing what to expect.
We were able to see that he did have a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He didn't respond to anything because he had taken his own life. Dwight Jones was lying partially on the bed, partially lying over the nightstand. And eventually, after we had the medical examiner there and were able to move him for evidentiary purposes, That's when we discovered the handgun that he had used, and that was the same handgun that was used in all of the other murders that he had committed.
Inside the room, investigators also discover evidence that could explain why he was initially thought to be a white male.
We discovered boxes and bags full of disguises of different colored masks, different shapes, wigs. It's always a possibility that he could have been wearing those disguises, which is why the witness statements were off when we discovered that we were looking for Dwight Jones.
It's very frustrating when a case ends like this because I want to be able to talk to this person and find out from him, from Dwight Jones, why he did what he did. I want the victims' families to be able to see him prosecuted and to see him get what he deserves. And ending the way he did, we'll never know what his motivation was. We can speculate, and I think we're pretty confident in why he did what he did. Dwight Jones was a very angry person. He felt wronged by society, by the court system, and nothing was going to placate his feelings. So he just had unreconcilable rage that was going to end the way it did, unfortunately.
The world lost a brilliant individual in Steve Pitt. He was engaged in the community. He was a good citizen, a good parent, a good human. There will always be a lot that I miss about Valeria and Laura. There's always that sense of loss, the camaraderie that we all, had at certain times. His victims weren't limited to the 6 people who were murdered. His victims were everybody that he touched, including his family.
Obviously, this whole case is tremendously tragic. And I have to imagine for those families, his suicide has to be so painful, knowing that he got out of this. They lost their loved one forever. And he just got to walk away. And that has to be very painful. And you're not going to get over that.